So I usually begin all my episodes by saying, I'm Lila and I'm horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And then my guest says, and I'm Matthew and I'm horizontal with Lila.
Okay.
But in this case, I thought I would say, I'm Lila and I'm sitting upright or sitting relatively upright, and then you can say, and
then I could say,
Tony,
I'm Tony and I'm half horizontal.
There we go.
I got to my feet.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Sex positive culture.
It's my body to give.
Are threesome gifts a thing?
Taking a bra off.
I like your bed.
Horizontal.
This is Horizontal with Lila.
I'm Lila, and I am sitting relatively upright.
And I'm Tony, and I'm half horizontal.
Because his legs are stretched out in front of him. Welcome to Horizontal. This conversation is a little bit different than the others. It's still slow radio. It's still a conversation about intimacies of all kinds. But this time, to close out Season 2, this time we recorded while sitting relatively upright because my guest is my dad. We recorded about a year ago, sitting on a somewhat noisy leather couch sectional in a house that's perpetually under construction, because my father loves the process of things. My dad's name is Anthony, but he's Anthony only to the family and Tony to his friends. He's always been Dad to me. He was born in Boro Park, at the time a half-Italian, half-Orthodox neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. It's also where I was born. He almost became a priest, but became a child psychologist instead. I suppose he would have ministered to souls either way. As far back as I can remember, my father's greatest love has been carpentry. The house I grew up in had a garage that functioned exclusively as my dad's woodshop. I didn't share my father's fascination with building things, but to this day, I love the smell of sawdust and have a great warm respect for those who craft with their hands. My dad's a Catholic, and I'm not. The story goes, my parents gave me the choice between Hebrew school and Sunday school, and I chose neither. And to their credit, they didn't force me to go. As a teenager, I became a Unitarian Universalist, or a UU. My dad has always respected my choices and approved of me. After the age of 12, when my parents got divorced, I didn't live with my father anymore. My mother moved us down to Florida, and my father stayed in New York. In this conversation, I ask him questions about that I had never questioned before. When I was 17, and I moved back to New York to go to college at NYU, my father moved me in and out of the dorms. He came to every single play and avant-garde theater piece I did in college, like the Antigone I performed in the fountain at Washington Square Park, and he did so for many years thereafter. He has been free with his affirmations and has always supported any choice that I enthusiastically made for my life. While my mother questioned the prudence of studying theater in college and threatened to pull her support if I persisted, my dad said he would always support me to the best of his ability. He approved when I wanted to become a yoga teacher. He approved when I wanted to become an acro-yoga teacher. He approved when I wanted to dance Argentine tango in Buenos Aires. He said yes when I asked him to loan me his car for 2 months in the summer of 2008 to make my first cross-country road trip, teaching acro-yoga all along the way. And he didn't mind that I put 10,000 miles on it. He approved when I decided to move to Portland. He approved when I had my Saturn return crisis and all I wanted to do was travel for a year. He received me when I burned out 9 months into that year and spent a couple of months first at my mom's place and then flew up to spend a cold winter in his fixer-upper house with him, stacking firewood and nursing myself back to adulthood. He approved when I told him that I lived in a sex-positive intentional community whose mission is to eradicate shame and encourage freedom of expression. He approved when I started a podcast, even though I'm broadcasting my secrets out into the universe, and he is a very private person. And though he's a very private person, he agreed the moment I asked him to make an episode with me, even though he has no interest in being recorded anywhere else. You see, he still has the capacity to surprise me. But maybe it's not a surprise at all. Maybe it's exactly true to character, because this is my project. And my father has always supported what I mean to do in the world. My father has been easy to love. In this episode, the first part of our conversation, we talk about his father, a grandfather I never met, also named Tony, who battled with the prejudice against Italians, beat his kids with a machine strap, gave a eulogy in Harlem, never told my dad that he loved him, and raped at least one of his daughters. My father broke the cycle of abuse. It only takes one generation to break a cycle, and that generation can be yours. We also talk about why my father decided to go to seminary, the ad hoc sex ed that he got by asking priests, and why he decided not to be ordained. It's probably not what you think. At least, it's not what I thought. My dad regularly goes on tangents, so we meander a lot here, even more than usual, be warned, and there's a lot of reminiscing. He also uses the word whatnot more than anyone I've ever heard. Actually, I can't recall hearing anyone else use the word whatnot. In just a few weeks, I'll be transitioning to a very different Patreon model and streamlining my tiers. The lowest tier will be $20 a month and will give access to many, many unreleased, raw episodes with never-before-heard guests, plus other choice, what do the kids call it these days? Premium content. If you want to be grandfathered in with access to the full horizontal, all the part twos at $5 a month, or $10 a month, which includes the monthly love poems, or $15 a month, which includes a ticket to a live event, now is the time to become a patron of the Horizontal Arts. Go to patreon.com/horizontalwithlila, patreon.com/horizontalwithlila, if you want to be a part of my mission to cultivate intimacy across the globe. What you're about to hear is the best conversation I've ever had with my dad in my life. And I had it because I was making something for you. So thank you. And come sit down with us. We are at my dad's house in upstate New York, a little town called Sydney. And it is a big fixer-upper. Everything is in a stage of repair.
Yep, absolutely.
Everywhere you look, boxes, and we have a straight shot. We can look straight into his woodshop, which is cavernous and filled with an enviable, a woodworker's envy of tools.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And we're on the leather couch because that's more comfortable for us than being horizontal in this moment. Do you remember how you used to bribe me to saddle soap the white couch?
Oh,
with,
definitely. Yes,
with a
yes.
couple of dollars? And then I don't know if you knew that I would go beyond the bounds of where I was supposed to go with my bicycle, and I would go to the Tiamo and I would buy candy and magazines.
Really? At the
Yes.
Tiamo? My gosh.
Yes.
Holy mackerel.
I know, how deviant of me.
Right. Adventurous, that's for sure.
Right? I loved Home Improvement, that show, and there was a boy
yes.
on that show who I thought was so cute at that time, Jonathan
Right.
Taylor Thomas. And I would go and I would buy these essentially teeny bopper magazines. They were called, I think, Teen Beat.
Uh-huh.
And they weren't sexy centerfolds, but they had centerfolds of these,
Oh.
fold out posters of these kid heartthrobs. And I would go and I would buy that and I would buy candy. Not come to think of it. that was rather adventurous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Going beyond the bounds of the known quadrant and
Right, definitely. Yeah, that was a
exploring
couple of long
further.
blocks up from where we were.
Yeah. I wanted to start early, so I wanted to start by asking you what was the relationship like between Grammy and Anthony?
Oh, because he was called Tony basically at that time.
Oh, he
And
was by
yeah,
his family or by his
everybody,
everybody?
yeah.
I didn't know that they called him Tony.
But you know, I now like to be called Anthony by my family, but Tony by everybody else. And
Yeah.
some they call me on the phone on these, you know, whomever it is, you know, the medical office or something. I'll say, okay, well you can call me Tony or Professor Donald, because they opt for Tony.
Is that because you wouldn't want to be Tony in your family because there already was a Tony?
I think it was probably insistence of my father, and everybody called him that he wanted me to be distinguished from that, and I was always called Anthony. Probably is that, but in a sense, so when he died, I said to myself, well, now I'm the Tony.
Yeah.
You know? And actually, I'm the oldest living Donalo in the country, actually.
Yeah.
No, well, I got some cousins who are a little older, but in New York City, anyway, I'm the oldest. Yeah.
And they're Donalos, the cousins?
And the Donalos, yes, yeah.
Hi, Kitty.
Yeah, there's a Joe Donalo in across the river from Manhattan, and he's a year younger. And there are some others in Brooklyn, but they're all much younger, you know.
I thought I was the last Donalo of my generation, but it turns out I'm not. There's an Alex Donalo. I'm not
Right.
sure exactly how he's related, but he is related.
Well, that cousin of mine, that first cousin, Joe, son was Paul, who was my uncle. That's my dad's brother. And Alex is Paul's son.
What does that make him to me?
Cousin.
But it must be some sort of second cousin or third cousin.
Oh, yeah.
Or once removed or...
Yeah, that's right.
I love how we just blanket it all into cousins.
Right.
They're
Well,
just
that
like, they're all
would be
cousins.
third cousin. Yeah,
Third cousin?
yeah. Because you have Joe, then you have Paul, and then you have him, Alex.
Hi, Kitty.
My kitty cat. Oh, I
Meow,
love
meow.
this cat. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it keeps me good company.
Good. I'm glad you have
Yeah.
her.
Now they're finding all sorts of relatives all over the place. Your Grammy's last name was Trocchia.
Mm-hmm.
Finding a lot of those around, and overseas too, you know, and the Donalos too. Actually, I would say thank God to Facebook, although we're probably cataloged by the government.
We
as,
definitely
right?
are, Dad.
Right? Cataloged. They have
Yeah.
a voice prints. They.
I
right?
don't know if you've been watching Westworld, but Westworld is making really strong parallels to a kind of surveillance state that
Yeah.
many of us think that we're living in.
Yeah.
And what they are mining is essentially marketing data from people constantly.
Yes.
Their preferences, and the facial recognition. But we're going off on a
Yes.
tangent.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Let's go.
Yes. Okay.
Let's go back to Della, or my
Right.
Grammy, and Tony.
Right.
And what did you observe about their relationship?
Your Grammy's saying that they would go to dances at the church, local church, in the auditorium that they had in the basement. And so she would be asked here and again by another lady, and says, aren't you jealous that your husband is dancing with that other lady and whatnot? So Grammy would always say, yeah, but I go home with him.
And she danced with other men.
Yeah, here and there. So she was very, very lively, very likable person. She was the sort of a strong, silent force in the family.
Do you know what kind of dances they danced together? Or to what kind of music?
Basically, I only saw them slow dance.
How often did they go out together?
That's a good question. Can't say. Well, I do know a number of times Barbara Donlow, she's an older cousin in Florida. She used to babysit for us. So obviously they went out, and at that time it was just myself and the next youngest, Johanna. So, they did go out.
That's the kitty purring.
Yeah. I don't know how often, maybe once every 3 weeks or once a month, something like that. Because they pretty much, were home, and of course he worked very hard, so was tired. But then, would Sunday become the real relaxation day, and so before we go to church, and then before they return, we may go to visit one of his brothers and the families. Mom would usually stay home, actually, and get things ready for us. And we'd have dinner on Sundays about 2 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
So macaroni was Sunday and Thursday. The leftovers were on Thursday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What did your dad do for work?
Well, originally he had graduated from Brooklyn Tech for carpentry and home building. And at that time, he could survey, which is something I can't do, which is unusual.
Which means you go to land and
you plot it out. You plot the dimensions out, and north, south, east, and west, and the degrees of variation. And then he could speak French, and he could play the violin.
He could speak French?
Yeah.
Did he play the violin at home?
When he took it up, like 13 years after he had stopped playing, it was not.
It was not that good?
No. It was screechy. Go in the basement, Dad. Please go in the basement and practice. It was terrible.
And how about his French? How did he learn to speak French?
In high school. Yeah. But of course he also spoke Italian. And although he never taught us Italian or had us involved in Italian, and I think the reason for that is in his time, storefronts would have help wanted signs, right? And they put them right out in the window, and they would say, no Irish, no Italian, no dogs.
Wow.
So I remember his telling me that he and his 4 brothers, when they're older, they used to walk down the street 4 abreast, and you didn't want to mess with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
They had to form their own little gang.
Yeah. And I remember my father, wasn't prejudiced. In fact, one of the best persons he hired was a black fellow, tall black fellow, a little bit muscular. He was very strong. And my father was teaching him how to work. At that time, he was working in waste paper and collected some metals too. He would bale them and then sell them to a middleman for recycling. So he looked at the fellow. His name was Homer. He says, Homer, I don't want you to do anything that I wouldn't do. So what did he do? He showed him how to use the baling machine. And then the baling machine then had an elevator. And after it was bound, with these heavy wires, you would push a button on the machine and it would rise up like an elevator. And he went and he took a hand truck and he got a hook and pulled the bale onto the hand truck. And then wheeled it backwards, then wheeled it forwards and put it where he wanted to. It was 1,100 pounds. So right after that, Homer says, Tony, I'll do it from now on. So he wasn't prejudiced in that way. In fact, he was even less prejudiced because I remember one time when the brothers hired a felon who had gotten out of prison, needed a job, and they thought he might work out and whatnot. Well, he was there for a couple of weeks until he took a knife to my Uncle Vinny. And then my father and my Uncle Vinny grabbed him and actually physically threw him out on the street,
Whoa.
told him never come back.
Around what time do you think that was that he hired Homer?
Oh, Homer, gee, wow. May have been 1953. Could it have been 1953? Yeah.
So at that
probably
time,
about that time.
that's pretty unusual. That's
Oh, yeah.
That's
yeah.
pretty quote-unquote progressive or a liberal attitude for that time.
Yeah. And then as far as liberal attitude is concerned, when Homer died, well, there was a funny thing about Homer. Homer was a very generous guy, but people knew when he was paid. And of course, he was paid in cash. And when he got off the subway and came home, they would see him come down. Oh, there's Homer. And they would say, oh, Homer, I didn't have enough milk for my child this week. And so he would get home with, like, I don't know, 60% of the money that he was given.
Oh.
So my father,
Homer.
what did he do? And I guess he lived in Harlem. My father would take the money and bring it to his wife. Well, Homer became a deacon at his church. I don't know what denomination that was, but when Homer died, Dad went there to give a eulogy, and that's like for Catholic Church, that's like, man. And I've never told anybody. It's just something he felt he had to do and wanted to do, and to praise this guy, and he gave up there and got a really good speech about the wholeness of this person. He was really special man.
Was it
Homer.
a non-Catholic church? Is that what you're saying?
Non-Catholic, yeah, right.
Oh, so he, as a Catholic,
Right.
went to give a eulogy at this non-Catholic church
yeah.
in the 50s.
Right, yeah. So he and my mother, the family has always been like that. The family, now we were, first married to, I don't know if was this first or not, whether to a Jewish person or an Irish person. But the family has always been, what could I say?
Accepting.
Really accepting and welcoming in a real family way. So now we have
Angel is Puerto Rican.
Angel's Puerto Rican. Mindy Trocchia, that's on Mom's side, is married to a black guy. Mm-hmm. So, there was...
Mom's Brazilian.
Huh? Yep. Yeah. So it was never that kind of thing. It's like, interestingly enough, my first girlfriend happened to be black. What I tend to see is the person. Is the person honest? Is the person communicative? Are they hiding something or trying to do a fraudulent thing or anything like that? You want to be wary, and everybody else has to be aware of that too. And you often find that sometimes that they're not in our family, but close people close to you are the ones you have to watch out for the most. It's really funny. There's a saying, keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. Yeah. One of our problems here in the States, now extends to other parts of the world, is that people are not integrated enough. So what I would like to see, and I have for, 50 years or 60 years, saying, wouldn't it be nice if all the ethnicities and were all mixed up,
I imagine that too, actually. Yeah.
Well, I may know somebody for a while, and then once I might mention, oh yeah, I recognize you're black, as if that made a real difference in my communication with them. Or my
No, but it
relationship
makes a
with them.
difference in their experience of the world.
Yes,
I
definitely.
remember reading something, and the person said, I don't mind that you notice that I'm black. I mind if you treat me differently because of it.
Exactly.
It's. But
Well,
pretending to be colorblind or not seeing color is
right. That's inadequate.
an offensive
really, offensive
thing.
But
to say.
I have a thing to say to people, and that is, let's be acceptance of us all. You have to be careful, right? And I call that, there's a big word called perspicacious, and that simply means that you're monitoring things, okay, for yourself. But
I like the word discernment.
Discernment, yeah, that's good.
But perspicacity is a nice word too.
Yeah.
It's a little crisper than I like discernment.
Yeah, you're
because
right.
It's a little more fluid.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I agree with you. But I do tell people, I said, something? I ask you, do you know that the whites, we people who, in quotation mark, call ourselves white, are a minority in the world? Mm-hmm. And so, no, what are you talking about? And I say, I'll answer you with one word: China.
You live in a really bizarrely prejudiced part of New York. It's very strange to me. Mm-hmm. When I come up here, it almost feels like the deep south and not the big cities, the backwoods, the rural deep south. And it confuses me very much. I don't understand.
Well,
but I wanted to really ask you about So I didn't know any of these things about your father, and I realized that I've hardly asked you any questions about him at all.
Right.
I never got to meet him. And you're telling me things that speak to his fairness, his value as an employer, and his kind of decency, human decency. But also, from what I know, he was really harsh on you.
Oh, it was kind of that way. Yeah. Yep.
Can you tell me about that?
Really kind of strict. Well, anytime we would really do something that was wrong, now how wrong can a child be? You know, a young person be? You know, we would get go to your room once in a while, but usually we'd get the machine strap. And
Machine strap?
A machine strap is a leather strap with a core of a metal running through it, a wire that was used on the Singer sewing machines. So we would get that in the behind. We didn't do it anyplace else, but I remember. Yeah, you can still remember to that day. Your body has memory, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it a sharp feeling?
When he did it, obviously it was a rounded thing. It was rounded.
I didn't know. I mean, I can't picture. I'm picturing sort of a ribbon, a long,
No, it was a
thin-
tube. It was like a tube.
It was a tube.
Yeah, but it was made out of leather, and inside the leather was this wire. So you know it would wear well.
So
on
he's
the
hitting
machine.
you with
Yeah, well,
essentially like a bike tire kind of a thing.
he put it together.
Oh,
you
he'd
know,
put it together.
in his hand and swat you. You know, that didn't happen too often, but you know, every once in a while we would do something wrong. Like I remember one time that was really interesting. We had this one clothes closet in Brooklyn. So Johanna and I said to each other, "Come on, let's have a campfire in there." So
I love it.
that's actually what we did, and of course the parents smelled it very fast,
my
and Mom
gosh.
called Dad, and they put it in.
Did you
they-
have actual kindling in the closet?
Yeah, we used something, paper and other stuff. Yeah, right. We had a little fire going, you know. Luckily, it didn't catch any
Oh,
piece of
my
clothing because that
gosh.
would have all gone up. And
The
we-
perfect place to have it. Oh my
Right,
gosh.
right.
So much
So,
fabric around.
They said, you can't be doing that, but they didn't punish us, you know. That's when we were really pretty young. I don't know, maybe 7 or so, and or 8, and she's 5. I don't remember exactly the time. Another time I remember I wanted something ironed for church, and nobody was there to do it. Everybody was busy getting ready and whatnot. So I took the iron out. Because they had told me not to use the iron, I ironed my thing, and then I took it. I lifted up a cushion to one of the chairs in the living room, and I put the iron in the chair and covered it with the cushion. So my father had to go. Look, we had a bow window. He opened one of the windows. He took the whole chair and threw it on the cemented porch. You know, so wasn't punished for that either. But at other times, you know, we'd get the strap. Yeah.
And as a kid, getting the strap, did you feel like you deserved it? Did it hurt your feelings?
Feelings, no, it just hurt to be.
Just okay. All right.
So, and then he used to take us places. I remember his taking me down to the wharf. He had worked as a carpenter on a construction of a naval ship, but this was the one that's now parked on the west side of Manhattan. And he took me down to go on it.
The Intrepid?
The Intrepid. You were actually able to go on it. And I saw the planes, and I say, my, oh my, these jets are small. You know, you see them up in the sky and in the movies and stuff like that. They seem so huge, and they're really pretty small. You know, really. So he took me there, and then for ice cream later. And we liked Lionel trains. He would take me to an exhibit of these train enthusiasts, and the whole shop, you know, was full of them. It could have been like 50 feet long and 20 feet wide. They had, you know, I don't know, 7 sets of trains going up and down mountains and stuff like that.
Did you
Well,
like your father?
Well, you felt safe around him, and did I like him? That's a good question. I liked some of the things that he was and some of the things that he did, and I respected him, of course, but I can't say I'm fully enthused about him. It was different from my mother.
Did he ever hug you?
Well, that's the thing. He may have once or twice in my lifetime, but never kissed me, and it's a custom of Italians to kiss their children, and they'll do it not necessarily on one cheek, two cheeks, and stuff like that. And then he never. One of the things that was bad about it is he never told me he loved me.
Well, never.
No, and that's why I
You tell
make it
me
a point
all the
to tell
time.
you that I love you, and I really do love you. You know,
Yeah,
I want to see
I
the
do.
best for you. I want you to be happy. You know, when you fall down, hopefully I can help you to see where you can get up and feel better about yourself and
Yeah.
just go on. But I didn't get that from him. And of course, my mother said, I told her later years, she said, well, he did love you. And I never said it. You know, and I think that's wrong for parents to do to their children. It's why they bring children into the world. You know, if they're not going to pay attention to them, why not
Yeah.
like that and tell them that they love them and tell them feel that they can feel comfortable and safe, and you know that the parents are there for them as a priority. You know, so what are you going to do? You just go with a woman and you have fun, and that's the end of that. Oh, we're pregnant, and no, you have to plan that, take care, that kind of thing. You know.
It's hard to understand that somebody loves you if they never tell you.
Yes. And one of the other things that really bothered me, talking about liking and disliking, that bothered me was that he used to tell me, and this was constant kind of thing, when I'd say something, I'm 2 steps ahead of you. And actually, yeah, a lot of the times he was. But parents don't say that to children. It says they may say every once in a while, indicate that that's the thing, and that here's the better way of doing it, or here's another way of doing it, kids' alternatives and whatnot. But you don't say to your kid, I'm 2 steps ahead of you. So one time I remember I was a young teenager, and I said to him, yeah, I'm ahead of you now. And then he had to prove to me that he was still 2 steps ahead of me. And what he should have just done was just stay silent. The fact that he was 2 steps ahead of me was still a fact, right? But why did he have to burden me with the feeling that he was 2 steps ahead of me?
It doesn't matter that he was. There's no reason to say that to you.
Right.
Because it's not teaching you anything except shame.
Yeah. Yep.
Or inadequacy. It seems very unkind and strange. And must come from some serious insecurity on his part, because who needs to tell a child, I'm 2 steps ahead of you?
Yeah, right. Well, some of his background, talking about the machine strap thing, is he told me the stories about Grandpa, Angelo. Every week, Grandpa would take them down. At that time, we had coal-fired burners that you have to go down and stoke and whatnot. So that heated the house in hot water. And he would take them down to near the coal bin. He would tie them to the posts that were down there. And he had 4 sons, right? And then he would whip them with a machine strap. So every once in a while, one of the kids would pop up and say, hey, Dad, we didn't do anything bad this week. And he would say to them, oh, this is for the next time you do something bad.
Oh, my God.
So you got that kind of
negative reinforcement constantly.
Yes. So, I mean, so what's this issue of being afraid of your father? I don't know. That's not good. You shouldn't be afraid of your mother either, or of your siblings.
So,
it's really.
Do you think that's why he became kind of brutal or harsh?
I think so. And I also think it was the tough thing about the times that as Italians you were considered dogs.
Right. And you had to
so you
defend
had to really
yourself.
Defend yourself, stand up. Right. Now he was still probably fair, but that toughness, you had to be really tough.
But there's also, at least we see in the mafia movies, a lot of tenderness within the family that you protect your.
Exactly.
So you're sweet with your people, and you kiss your people, and you hug your people. But then the outsiders that you are fierce against outsiders.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like that was there.
That doesn't seem like the case, no.
And then one of your sisters came and said that she was molested by him before Grammy died, told her that. And how do you think he got away with that?
Well, sneaky. He used to come visit me at high school, went to high school in Lenox, Massachusetts. And they would visit, and once in a while he would just take Johanna with him. So I started there when I was 14 and a half. 14 and a half, yeah. So every once in a while he would come up with her. They would stay at a motel in town. But I understand that he not just molested her, but he actually raped her.
Oh.
And so that was repeatedly, and then charged her with telling no one or he would kill her.
Oh my God.
So, I say that, and it's it's like really sad. So to this day, my brother Peter and myself, and Peter goes, "Oh, the rapist,"
Yeah.
And so glad he's gone. And I think he may have done that to Marion too.
I think so too, even though she's not saying it.
Right.
I can only imagine that is where some of her weight problems stem from.
Oh, I think so. And
to
Johanna's
protect
weight
herself.
problems, yes. Yeah, because people like that, in my opinion, as a psychologist, I would say that they became that way so that people could look at them and ignore them, or sort of detest their physicality and stuff like that. Yeah,
Like thick
And
armor, thick protection.
thick armor, so that then it wouldn't be hurt further by broken relationships and stuff.
Johanna, so my aunt told Grammy before she died.
Yes.
When was it in her illness?
Oh boy, I can't say. I don't remember.
Was it close to the time she died?
No, it was years and years before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my father died when he was 54, and Mom died when she was 83, so I don't know. I can't say the year, but I would say
Maybe
it's at least 20
a few
years.
years.
I would say at least...
that long? I thought she told her right before she died because she didn't want her to live with that knowledge.
Not that I know of, but you would have to ask her, because I really don't know.
Okay, we don't know the timeline.
Chronology, yeah.
What did Grammy say?
She said if she knew about it, she would have killed him. And she would have.
And then who knows what would have happened to you all.
Exactly. And she's very, very discerning, very smart woman, and she decided if she had come to that point, if he was still alive, she would have decided not to do that because of the children. She really loved us all,
I know, so much.
And cared, and cared for the, and cared for all of the progeny, really.
Do you think that Tony ever suspected that Peter was gay?
That I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But I do know that when I first started working in New York City, I came back to New York, obviously, after grad school. My first job was at Johns Hopkins Hospital and University. Second year there, I became professor. But so after 2 years, I left because Dad had died, and so that was 1979. The 2 years I stayed with 1978 and 79. So I came back after 79 to help my mother take care of things in New York. And so I remember driving my car in the driveway there, one of the few people on the street that had a driveway. Peter helped me taking things out of the back and told, "No, take care." And I remember at that time, a couple of years later, that I was taking him once in a while to go to the therapist. But Mom was very accepting of that, supported him through that whole thing. And
What whole thing?
The fact to have his acknowledgement that he was gay.
When did that happen? When did he come out?
Well, he came out to Huff first, I guess. So that would be in the mid-'80s, I guess.
Oh, so long after your father died.
Yes. So I don't know if he suspected anything earlier or not.
But he didn't have a healthy relationship with Tony.
I do not know about that at all. Really, because I wasn't around most of the time.
Can you tell me about your whole household? So you're the firstborn.
I'm the firstborn.
You were born in 1941.
Right.
December.
Right. And Johanna
14th, 1941.
14. Yeah, you remember it. Good.
Thanks. Woo! Phew!
Okay. And now my social security number.
No. Oh, no. I didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
Never say that over the air.
No. Not a good idea.
Yeah, and then Johanna's 3 years later. She was born in January. And Marianne was next. Then Liz, and then Peter.
So you're an only child.
So,
do you have any memories of being an only child? So do you have any memories before 3 years old?
yes. Well, actually about 3. I remember that my grandfather was living in the back apartment on 60th Street, upstairs.
Angela?
Yeah, Angelo. And he, Giovannina had died at that time, my grandmother. And he came to live there. And so they're talking, well, there wasn't even a dining room. There was just a kitchen table, and this very small kitchen table there. So my father's sitting there with him and somebody else. And they're talking, and so I used to like to go and investigate. So I'm 3 years old. I'm sitting on the floor. I open up one of the kitchen cabinets, and I spot a gallon jug of wine there. Now, I didn't know it was wine or anything. It was a different color and everything. And I just got in there, 3 years old here, and I picked this thing out and brought it to the floor and whatnot. And then they're looking, because they got eyes around their heads, So 3 years, that was the memory that I had.
You picked up the jug of wine.
Yeah. I was interested. What is this, So I remember when I was a little old, I would go to visit my grandmother. And I remember now, they had 4 sons and 4 daughters. And so they knew I was coming, so they would come in up the side steps. And the aunts would get by the kitchen cabinet doors and extend their hands so that I couldn't get under them, because I would always go to investigate.
In the cabinets?
Yes, in the cabinets, in the drawers. Yes.
I love it.
Right.
I love how curious.
Unless I was really interested, because my grandmother used to make homemade macaroni and stuff like that, and I'd be enthralled by the, pounding things out and putting things through the press. And
Giovannina
stuff like
made macaroni.
What's that?
Giovannina made macaroni.
Yes, yeah, the whole group, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And she came directly from Italy.
Yeah, actually, Grandfather Angelo came over one time when he was reasonably young. He was a teenager, I think.
And where'd he come from?
And he came from Salandra. And then he worked here, and he he started off by a push cart in Manhattan, collecting papers and metals and things like that, and then selling them and whatnot. And that's actually built up into quite a business. And so they kept the route. They had a route in Manhattan, and they had a couple of routes in Brooklyn. He started this thing with a pushcart. When it changed into the real business, I don't know. But then later on, he went back to Italy and found a woman, whose really name is Johanna in English, it's Giovannina, in an adjacent town, married her and brought her back.
So he hadn't met her. He went back to find a wife?
Yeah, and he wanted an Italian wife, So
he imported an Italian wife,
right,
so he could have one in Brooklyn.
Yeah. And he did have, I understand, a reason for if I really wanted to do so, I could get Italian citizenship, and then, of course, jump to European citizenship.
Let's do it.
and the reason was that he had 2 children who both died a little one after another, around 2.5 or 3 years of age.
Don't answer it. We're making a podcast.
I know. No, I'm not going to answer it, but it will continue to ring.
Why can't you just make it stop ringing?
I can't.
Why?
It'll stop in a minute.
Just press the red button. Oh, no, it doesn't
I told
do
you.
it. Your phone is terrible.
Listen, my brother Peter says I've had the worst trouble with phones. and connections over here. I've gone to different phone companies, and it's
Oh
still
my gosh,
not
I can't
properly.
believe we have to wait until it stops
Yeah,
raining.
it's 6 rings at least. So then the 2 children died really very, very young. And
They died young.
Yeah, at 2.5, 3 years old.
So
For an influenza, I think it was.
these would have been your uncles, your aunts and uncles.
Yes. And then they had 8 more, as they say, so.
8.
Yeah, four boys, 4 girls.
So she had 10 children.
Yes.
So she was pregnant for
a lot of time.
years upon years.
They were
upon
busy.
Years.
They were busy.
My goodness. Oh, and they're Catholic, so they have no family planning.
Yeah, at that time, sure.
Oh.
Well, Dad and Mom lost 2 children, so we would have been 7 instead of 5.
Really?
Yep.
When?
Oh, one of the
Before
times
you?
when I was when I was, I don't know if one had been before me or not. Well, one certainly was when I was in high school. About 15, when I was 15 or so.
And were all of your other siblings already born?
Oh, yeah. Some of them were born, yeah. I think Marianne was also born at that time.
Did you go?
And I don't know about Liz.
Did
No.
you finish the birth order? Did you tell me all the?
No, I didn't.
So you were first,
At first,
and then when you were 3, Johanna was born.
right. And then Marianne was born after that.
How long after that?
About 10 years, I think. And then Liz was born, and then Peter was born. Peter is now 62.
But Peter's the
60.
baby? I always thought Liz
Oh, wait a
was the
minute.
baby.
Huh?
Isn't
Wait a
Liz
minute.
the baby?
Liz is the baby. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
got it
Peter
mixed up. Yeah,
first.
right, Peter first. But he's like 62, 63 right now. So 13-year difference, yeah.
Wow.
So there were really
long time to be
essentially
child
two sets of children, essentially. But that's because the other ones died. So I don't know when the first one died. I have no idea. I wasn't told. Well, no.
Often when there is a story like that, the oldest winds up doing a lot of parenting. Did you do any parenting of
No,
No, of your siblings, no.
No, not at all. I have another thing to say about Grandpa and my grandmother.
Angelo and Giovannina?
Giovannina was on the verge of dying, and it was during the war.
Which one?
The Second World War. So the doctor, they used to come to the house, right?
Doctors used to make house calls with their doctor bags.
Exactly. So he did what he could for her and said to Angela, says, listen, I don't have any, any medication to give her or anything like that. Keep her rested, keep fluids in her and stuff like that, So I just wish I had some kind of liquor around here, that I could give her. So doctors, he didn't leave yet, and Angelo's thinking, wait a minute now. He had a little plot on the side of the house that was just in from the sidewalk that I would say was maybe four square feet, right?
Okay.
And it was sand. Well, what he had done, he probably used to be dirt because there were all farms there. So he dug down, and he got a bottle. In fact, he got 2 bottles that he had made and inverted. He made wine and inverted them. But by that time,
What do you mean inverted them?
well, they put the cork down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he sealed it or anything like that, but put the cork down, face down.
Literally inverted them.
Yeah. And then he brought it to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, this is perfect. Find out it had turned to champagne, right? So for his fee, he gave him 1 bottle, and the doctor said, every 3 hours now, you got to give her a really big shot of this stuff, and then just let her lie, and that cured her.
What?
Yep.
She was cured with homemade wine that turned into
Turned into
champagne?
champagne. Well, it's a good thing that she didn't have the wine, because I tasted his wine one time. It was the most terrible wine I've tasted in my whole lifetime.
Really?
So good that it turned to
Was
champagne.
it more like making gin in the bathtub kind of a thing?
I guess so.
Where it's
I
just
guess so, yeah.
kind of rot gut,
Yeah,
kind
rot
of
gut.
homemade,
yeah, right,
you know.
homemade. Terrible taste. Terrible. But something? He wasn't sick a day in his life until he got 75. He died at 77. And he used to have, at the mealtime, he used to have a medium-sized glass of wine. every single night from what he made in Preston, you know.
His terrible wine.
Terrible wine. Kept him alive. He was never sick.
Wow.
Never got a cold or anything. I never heard of him ever going to the doctor.
What a constitution.
Yeah, yeah.
What did...
So at 75, I actually saw him pulling a bag. They in Brooklyn, the brothers had a wastepaper business, and they had a route with the post office, and they would take the post office refuse, you know.
Oh.
And I saw Grandpa dragging 100. He didn't pick it up, but he dragged a 100-pound bag, you know, and it was dragging it into the shop. And my father stopped him and said, "Don't you do that, Dad," you know. And he took it the rest of the way. But Grandpa at 75 was doing that.
Huh.
Little skinny thing. He was about 5'2", you know.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
And was your father short as well?
Yeah, I think he was 5'6". Yeah, well, I think I belong to the short people. This group.
Yeah. So
I'm 5'7".
I'm 5'5".
And I lost a quarter of an inch. I used to be 5'7" and a quarter.
Oh.
So I say, well, over the ages I have
I'm
shrunk.
technically 5'4" and 3/4", but 5'5" is just easier to say.
Right, of course.
Eventually, you said Angelo wasn't sick at all, but eventually, what did he die of?
Yeah, I don't know. But I do know that he had, Grandma had died, and he had remarried him, and then was living in the front apartment above us. And I do know that my father had to come in from the shop, which is next door to the residence, and go upstairs and give him his medication because his so-called wife wouldn't do it. Why? Don't ask me.
What kind of medication? Like shots or?
No, pills. Yeah.
That's a curious story.
Yeah.
Huh. So my original question was, what was the relationship like between Tony and Grammy? And the only thing you told me is that they went dancing, I think.
Right, they
but
did dancing.
were they affectionate with each other? Did they hug each other? What did you learn about relationships by watching them?
No, I didn't see too much of that. I mean, when they'd come to visit since age 9 months, they always in the summer times took us up to Sterling Forest and the cottage there, the family cottage that used to be in my mother's family's name from 1910.
Do you remember where that was exactly in Sterling Forest?
Yes, it was just on the New York side of the New York-New Jersey borderline in Greenwood Lake.
And
Sterling
the street?
Forest. Yeah, 65 Hillside Road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And at that time, I think Mom Bell was at that time in charge, and great system it was. We only had to dial the last 4 digits of the telephone number to get around the
Really?
lake. Yes.
The last 4 digits.
And the initial digits had GR7, Greenwood Lake 7, 8154 is the last 4 digits. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Did you love that getaway? Did you love going to
Greenwood
Lake?
Yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, I was there 9 months when I was very, very young, because my mother used to. They had a porch with a swing. I don't know if the swing was there at that time, but had a little playpen outside, and she, after feeding and stuff like that, and changes, they would put me out in the playpen there, and she would look out, every once in a while, do a little work inside and look out and look and do a little work. That's the way they used to do it. And she saw this huge rattlesnake starting to crawl up on the porch. And I'm sure she was scared out of her wits. But she rescued me, And then she called the guy next door. He says, "Oh, yeah, I'll take care of that." He gets his axe and he comes over.
Whoa.
But so she rescued me there, yeah. I know that as far as the kids are concerned, Dad used to go down with us to the lake when he would come up on the weekends to do some swimming and stuff. And, of course, then he'd go to sit and smoke a cigar. While we were playing around in the water, we were water rats. If we weren't 6 to 8 hours in the lake, we'd be off in the woods trekking by ourselves. They let us go off, by the way. There were tens of thousands of acres owned by New York University at the time. And I said, "Oh, we're going in the woods." I said, "Okay."
that used to be the way, right? And
Yep.
that's how children learn resiliency and how they explore their curiosity, how they develop their imagination, and
Yep.
and it's not happening now because they're kept on such a short leash
Right,
that
right.
they're not, whatever parts of the brain are activated by getting to explore on your own and
Right.
fall down if you fall down,
And fall down, yes, yes,
you know, have
yeah.
those experiences, are not getting developed.
Right, right.
And I think it's stunting children,
Oh,
and then
definitely.
they're further stunted by all the technology in their face all the time.
Right, right. And this advertising does this terrible, terrible thing to the psyche. But as an extension of this, of being allowed to do that, so now I'll give you an example of myself going over on trips to Europe. Why do I want to go there? In fact, the one time I said to you and your mother, said your mother and you were going out shopping. We lived in Freeport. I said, oh, we're going out shopping. We'll be back later. And I said, well, not if I'm in Europe. So I got myself together and I went to Europe. So what was my draw for Europe, right? It was not to go over, over there and fool around with other women and stuff like that. I like to step my foot in another country. Then I want to walk. And I'll walk 5 blocks this way. Say, oh, let me turn left. Right? And then I go to another place. Oh, well, this time I'll turn. No, I'll turn left again, And then I'll go right and whatnot. And I don't care if I get lost. So kids you're right, they're not allowed to do that. But I'm just showing an example of what the results are in your later life.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is I got my wanderlust from you. That's what you're telling me here.
Okay, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And maybe I had a little less, I wasn't running around in the woods because we lived in the suburbs.
Right.
So perhaps I had a little less freedom than you did as a child.
Right.
But I also got to run around my neighborhood. I also got to run around, the backyard and the neighboring backyards. I used to, sneak into the, the neighboring backyards and the abandoned house,
Right.
Maybe a couple houses away and root around and bike down to the stream. And, that sets you up for adventurousness because it lets you explore, and if nothing too bad happens, you think exploring is great.
Yeah, right.
I want to keep exploring throughout my life.
Now look what happened to you. So your mother's in the hospital, right? And I was to pick you up at school at a certain time. You had to wait outside for me, and I was, I got so involved, and I did get a lot involved in my woodworking. And that day I missed it, so I get to school, and that school is out 15-20 minutes, and you're not there, and so then I go home. I call up the principal and whatnot, and then say I don't know what happened. So about a half hour later, then I get a call from you. I said, okay, Lila, where are you? Well, I'm at my girlfriend's. You didn't say you didn't meet me at school, but I said, my girlfriend's. Well, I said, oh, good, and then I called the principal back and let her know that you were safe and stuff like that. But you then had the common sense. I mean, you're also very intelligent. Well, listen, my dad's not here. I don't know what happened, so let me go someplace that's safe, And you did that, and then you called me too. So
well, having that structure, having some boundaries, right, gives you something to play inside and also to push against,
right?
And that kind of dialectic is important.
Definitely, yeah. Even opposition, it's like normal thing. But I really, as far as you're concerned, I really never had felt any big opposition from you or whatnot that you at all. There wasn't this angst that some parents go through with the teenagers. Oh, I don't know what to do with my teenager, pulling out my hair, kind of thing.
When I was a teenager, I think Mom got all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't in the same house at that time, so I think she got the angst.
Right.
Kind of the short end of the stick, but I think I was a much nicer child when I was younger, probably. But you, as a teenager, so you're raised Catholic,
right?
And then, what is the process of you deciding that you're going to become a priest?
Well, I think part of it was due for the desire to serve God just directly. And the other, I think maybe even half of it was, kind of how do I get away from my father?
Yeah.
And they supported me in that, by the way. They supported me in that.
Is that...
But one of the things that I feel that I've gone through the seminary for so many years is that I actually lost out on my ages of socialization, and integration with the females, and a general group situation. I know when I was in elementary school, for instance, I had a group who said, "Oh, let's go bicycling." And, "Oh, Mom, we're going bicycling. We're going to Prospect Park." That was pretty far away.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then we'd go on and
From Boro Park.
Yeah. And then we'd go with the bicycles, and we'd go find the biggest hill, and then we'd race down it, when we were bouncing all over the place and whatnot, I'm surprised the bikes weren't crashed.
Oh, yeah, you're
totaled,
so lucky.
So that group situation that continues in teenage years into the early 20s and stuff like that. I just missed out on that. It's not that I can't do it, but I think there were some things that were lost in going through that kind of growth there.
Why was the seminary the way to get away from your father? For instance, why wasn't it the military or...
Well, first of all, I was the minor seminary, and I was, so it's high school stuff, and I was too young.
So you could be on a seminary track in high school?
Yeah. So this was the high school. Yeah. So I started first year high school there.
And it was a boarding school?
Yes.
So you could just get out of your parents' house?
Well, that's not the main reason. The main reason was service.
Well, you said it was 50-50 just now.
Well, it may have been 50-50. I really don't know.
Okay.
But I said a big part of it was getting out of the house, but away from the like the super control kind of thing. But that's another controlled situation.
Of course.
And didn't bother me.
Highly controlled.
It didn't bother me very much.
You mean the restrictions weren't...
That kind of restrictions, it didn't bother me. We had, one of the things is, like the military, you have hours. You get up at 6, you clean up, you go downstairs to Mass. Afterwards, you have breakfast, you serve sometimes, you clean up other times, and then you get ready to start 8 o'clock going to classes. And you go to classes till lunch. May serve or may clean up afterwards, or may just be served. And then you had a little time off, back to classes till the end of the afternoon, When 4 o'clock came, well, one day, Wednesday, at 4, we could go out and recreate. So go out and play softball or stuff like that. In wintertime, we would toboggan. And because this was in the Berkshires, so that was nice. We used to get on a sled, 4 or 5 of us, and we'd push off on a big hill, and we'd have to go around a curve, We go around this banking around the curve, and then going across a road and slamming into the fence on the other side. It was terrific. I still remember that. So, at other times we would be doing things like cleaning, like the floors had to be cleaned, and they had to be dusted and washed, and sometimes polished, and that sort of thing. Had to fix our beds, that sort of.
Why do you think that kind of highly regimented schedule and strictness, that series of rules, was comfortable for you, whereas your father's rules and your home rules were not?
Well, I wouldn't say the home rules were not. There were a few rules, like when I was just there with Johanna. So, table is set, we would eat, and so then, Dad wouldn't do it, but Mom and 2 of us would clean up. But then either I would go to wash the dishes or Johanna, and the other one would dry. Didn't have washing machines at that time.
Dishwashers, right?
Yeah, right. So that was fine. Not a problem. I mean, we had to go and we had to fix our own beds in the morning before we go to school.
Well, that sounds very reasonable.
Yeah.
But what I think I'm trying to get at is, why were you itching to get out of your house?
Well, one of the reasons would be that probably that Dad was always saying it's 2 steps ahead, not giving me credit, although they did praise me for my really good marks at school.
He praised you for your school excellence.
Yeah. And then birthdays, they would throw really nice parties for us, and that sort of
Grammy was
thing.
a really good party thrower.
Oh yeah, that was always nice. Invite the aunts and the cousins and stuff like that. We have a great time. So Brooklyn, I miss the spumoni, the sfogliatelle, and the Italian bread.
But that's about all you miss about Brooklyn, huh? Because you told me that you drive back in now and you feel this sense of like dread almost.
Well, that was years ago. Now I've changed it. Now it's been no. It's okay to go down this.
I was wondering how it is to drive in and visit me now.
Yeah, it's just a long drive, you know.
It
really
is. I know.
Yeah.
I'm
I always have
grateful.
to. Unfortunately, since I'm partly disabled, it's also a question of logistics. You know, where do I go? If I park the car, how far can I walk alone? Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why I didn't go to Aunt Ida's birthday party. Because I felt, well, if you were along, you know, you could hold up one arm
Help,
and then
sure.
you would really help. Because I didn't even know where I'd be parking. And they said, well, parking is nearby. I would have probably gotten there late and all the parking spaces taken, you know. And that's not a place that there's a lot of parking. Up at Cropsey Avenue and around there. I know that area. So I had to get it back going.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Let's get back to,
you go to the pre-seminary, right? That's essentially
Yeah,
what
right,
it is
exactly.
at the high school. And then you go on to actual seminary.
Yeah, I decided that was the good track for me.
So did you get any sex ed at school?
No, actually, when I was in high school, I actually went to talk to a priest about that. And so when I got back, he said, "Where'd you go?" I said, "I went to the priest. I talked to me about sex." And Mom asked me, "Well, why'd you ask us?" You know. Well,
Really?
yeah. When you give sex education to children, they should know what the male organs are, what the female organs are, what they do, you know, and you don't have to be explicit about intimate acts and stuff like that and whatnot, but people, they have to know about their body and what it's like, and how they have to care for it. For instance, just about the skin in general. Some people can't take the sun. So you got to really watch out for those kids. They can't take the sun. Yeah, they have to wear protective clothing, you know, SF50 on them and stuff like that. So those common things are very important. So knowing about your body, you really have to know about the big thing. And then, I mean, when kids are younger, little children ask, "Oh, where do babies come from?" And then they finally say, "Oh, they come from mommy's belly," you know. And then as they get older, there's a little more information. But I think by the time that they reach a young teenagers, they really should know that the penis is inserted past the vulva into the vagina to have children, you know.
Well, by the time they could potentially make one, which I was just told by Dr. Jana is actually as early as 9 for some bodies.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time they could actually make one, they need to know that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And
To watch out for
there's
that,
developmentally appropriate sex ed. I recorded with Pamela Samuelson, who has done a lot of work around that, and there are ways to teach children to be essentially pleasure positive, right? Like, yes, that
Right,
feels good.
right.
You can do that. You can do that in your room.
Yes,
You know, you
exactly.
don't do that at the table.
Yeah.
You know, things like this, making distinctions for them.
Oh, yeah.
And letting them know that it's not bad and it's not
Right.
dirty, and it's, you know, so that they don't grow up inoculated with shame.
Right.
But if you don't learn about sex until you're a teenager and you learn from a priest, then the lens
Not the
through
full picture. Yeah.
not the full picture. What did he tell you?
I don't remember the whole scene, but he didn't really go into the aspects of intimacy, and how people are intimate. I know in the seminary, you talk about priests being regular. When I was in the major seminary, I remember Father Lapa. He was an erudite priest. He used to study 1 hour of history every night just on his own because he wanted to learn more and whatnot. And very, very pleasant, real spiritual man. And, he's just, with a wave of his hand one time, he says, the man, he has to make sure he's got to go all over the woman's body with his hands. You know? So, they really...
How interesting.
And that's natural. So another priest that said to me one time, because Americans, unfortunately, are so, quote, breast conscious, And as I told you before, I said, well, everybody is telling me, supposedly they are telling me, that breasts are in. But I always thought breasts are out. They stick out.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
So,
Come on.
to me, what's the most important as far as a person's concerned, a relationship is concerned, part of what most important is what's between the legs, what's between the ribs, the heart, and what's between the ears. Right? So I hope they get the meaning that know that the big sex organ is
The brain.
in the spirit in the brain. Yeah.
So they're teaching you from this lens of Catholicism, right? Whatever they offered to you is from this lens of Catholicism, which says that sex is a sin before you're married, right? So that's what
They were really also
with.
against masturbation stuff. But they really never talked much about that stuff. We concentrated on all of the positive things that are going on, like service to God, service to others, and the learning we had to do in the university. We were in a college. We were in a top-notch university.
Which was what?
Which had graduate school standards for the undergraduates. Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C. A lot of our time was occupied in studies because we had our work to do too, groundskeeping and housekeeping, and I wound up doing the cooking, and I drove off twice a week and could go here and there.
How did you internally reconcile the idea that to be a priest you were never going to have sex, you were going to be celibate?
Oh, I just thought that was a natural course of events. That's all.
That's just.
And that's not. By
what
the
you
way,
give
that's
up?
that's not. Yeah, that's what you give up. And it's not the reason why I left the seminary. It's because I wanted to have sex, so I left the seminary.
I was
That's not the
curious.
reason.
I wondered
No.
if that was the case.
No, the reason why I left the seminary was that just before final vows, I said, well, this is really not for me. And that was it.
But how did you know it was not for you?
Felt it.
What did it feel like?
I just felt it that it was the right thing to do, to leave. Yeah. To stop and not go through final vows. And by the way, that was an order I was into. The common priest, the priests you see in town at the churches are they take a vow of chastity and they take a vow of obedience. They don't take a vow of poverty. But ours was the three.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Vow of chastity, vow of obedience,
Right.
vow of poverty.
Right.
Wow, that's really intense.
Oh yeah. It wasn't monastic, but
Close. It seems
close. Yeah. Right.
monastic adjacent.
Right.
I've been saying, you know how they'll say, a neighborhood, and if they want to make it sound better, if it's right next to a nicer neighborhood,
Right.
they'll say it's, Dumbo adjacent or Brooklyn Heights adjacent. So I've been saying, because people ask me if I'm polyamorous, right? And I say, well, I'm poly adjacent because a lot of my housemates are polyamorous.
Right. Oh boy.
And I'm open and I'm curious and I don't know what I am yet is the truth. But I like to use that adjacent.
That's right. That's funny. Well, I know what this whole business of sexuality. People have to realize that you essentially need, even if it's a limited relation, you essentially need respect for the other person and caring. I realize that it's good in the heat of passion. Use all the 7 deadly words. That what's his name came out with.
Carlin, right?
Carlin, yeah, funny.
How did you meet your first girlfriend?
Actually, I was in grad school. I went to a bar. Now I don't usually go to bars, but there was something to do. Something different. So I went from Oxford, Ohio, to Cincinnati. And stopped in this place, and they had some music, and you could dance there and whatnot. I wound up dancing with this gal, and so that was a first. And she was a very pleasant person, really, really nice.
What year do you think that was?
Oh, that would have been, let's see. Well, 65, Good question. So that would have to be 1975, I guess, something like that.
Okay.
1975.
Yeah. So a more loose kind of swinging time, right?
Yeah, just
More integrated social
yeah.
activities.
Well, just that the main concentration was the studies. They were kind of really intense. We didn't have semesters there. We had trimesters. So we had actually 5 trimesters would equal 2 years of study. So it's kind of packed, and study was a real big occupation, taking our time.
Sure.
I remember getting tired and visiting a friend around a couple of times around midnight. I had quit because I couldn't see anymore. I was studying there at home, and I find him kneeling at his bed doing some more work.
Oh wow.
It was really occupying.
Do you remember her name?
No, I don't. No, don't remember the name of a number of the gals that I actually dated.
But you had a relationship. She was your first relationship?
First, no, it wasn't. It didn't last too long, actually. It didn't last too long. But that was it. And when I went back to study,
Right.
Really, it was. I mean, it's very, very important for me to get that degree.
Right. Was it a source of? Did you think also it was going to be a source of pride for your family to have a priest in the family? I know it's a source of pride.
Yeah, they were proud of that. Yeah, definitely. Because there wasn't any. Wasn't any. Now there's one on the Trocchia side with one of my Aunt Ida's brother's sons, who actually didn't turn out so well. They met some really nice priests, solid priests, real, just natural people, and you would want them as your friends. That guy, I don't know where he, I guess he lost the left bicycle pedal, and he still thinks he can pedal correctly. I don't know.
So, were your parents disappointed when you didn't take your orders?
They didn't tell me ever that they were disappointed. No. In fact, my father and my uncle, who was my godfather, Uncle Vinny Trocchia, my mom's brother, came down for me when they got the message and helped me out, kind of thing.
What do you mean? How?
Well, they helped me out as far as giving me support, that it was an okay decision to make. Then I did, because the semester had ended. I mean, I stayed to finish the term of my vows, and by that time the university courses were finished, and I graduated. And they brought me back to New York, and then I was talking with Mom and Dad, and I said, gee, I'd really like to continue on. I wanted to go back to Catholic University, but to change my major then, so to get all the prerequisites to become a psychologist. And I said, okay, that's good, you know what? So I actually arranged to get a $1,000 loan from the government, and then they gave me $5,000. So with $6,000, I did the next year prerequisites. I got all my prerequisites in.
Did you know at that point you wanted to be a psychologist?
Yes. I had a couple of courses within the philosophy department when I was there, because I graduated in philosophy. That was funny because I went to the dean, and I don't know, I forget why I went to see him, but it was the end of the semester and everything. He said, if you stay with me, you're going to have your thesis and your master's in 1 year.
Wow.
So, and that's unusual, So, but I said, no, I got, I kind of want to eat, Because my idea of what philosophy is you meditate and you think and you
starve.
And you starve. Yeah, right. And study and continue to study,
Think.
Right. Well, that's really funny thing, because people ask me, and says, well, my brother's asked me a number of times, well, what do you read? I said, well, I do read my specialized construction journals and
Yes.
and stuff like that. Something I'm interested in. But my main thing, my main joy is in thinking.
Mm-hmm.
figure I have enough information, and I take in more as it comes. Very interesting. Well, so people say, why would you do just that? You need other kind of input. Well, let me say this, then. I did, while I was in grad school, I went to a vocational counselor to see, what I might do afterwards, how I might utilize my education. And I took the strong vocational interest blank test. And then I went back to him to see what the results were and what his comments on them were. And he looked at me and says, "You're interested in so many things, I can't tell you what to do."
Oh, wow. I was wondering where I got that from, too. This podcast was edited by Chad Michael Snavely. Find his full roster on chadmichael.com. Alan Markley composed my intro music. You can find him on Instagram as Plastic Cannons. And Shauna Shea created my cover art. Hire her for graphic design and character illustration on 99 Designs. This episode comes with a call to action. If they are alive, accessible to you, and you are both willing and curious, interview your parents. You don't know how many chances you'll get. And if you never recorded them, you might wish you did. In next week's episode, the second half of my conversation with my dad, we discuss how he met and married my mother in Brazil, the day of my birth, forgiveness, feminist versus mainstream pornography, how my mother left my father, why my dad didn't move to Florida to be close to me, how he feels about the fact that I don't want kids, and the kind of partner that he's seeking now in his later years. He also tells me a story about my Grammy and a radio agent. For access to that episode and all the part twos, become a patron of the Horizontal Arts now, before the tiers go up in a few weeks. Patreon.com/horizontal with Lila. Again, it's patreon.com/horizontal with Lila. Until next week, may you have someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Thank you for being, in this case, relatively upright with us. I have that paranoia ever since I failed to record that first episode while I was on the road. After we ostensibly recorded for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I just have to see it and see that it's recording.
Okay.
I have not made that mistake again.
Yeah, well, it's all in the course of life. A little learning here and there hopefully goes on.